In this video, we're going to create an options page where we can manage a lot of the site information from a central point. To do that, we have Advanced Custom Fields Pro installed and Advanced Custom Fields, and we're using Oxygen Builder for the template. So to get started, let's head over to Custom Fields and go to the Options pages and set up an Options page. So we'll add new and we'll call this Site Options. Menu slug we can call Site Options. The menu title we'll call Site Options. You can of course make these whatever you would like. Position we'll leave a default. Parent slug we'll leave. We're not going to upload an icon, but if you do upload an icon into your media gallery, the size to target would be something in the region of 30 by 30 pixels. And with that in place, let's publish. And you'll see now that on the left-hand side in the menu, we now have Site Options. If I click on Site Options, you'll see that we're encouraged to create a custom field group. So we can either do that by clicking on that link or going over to Custom Fields to Field Group. We'll click on this link. And now we can create our custom field group. So we'll call this Site Options. And what we'll also do is head over here quickly down to post type is equal to, and we're going to change that. And we're now going to make this the options page is equal to, and we only have site options. So you can have more than one options page, and we're going to publish. We're going to add our first field, and what we're going to do is call this option contact number. And then we're going to create, this will be then a telephone number. So we'll just leave that as a text field. And under instructions, we can add some information. So we'll just say enter contact number. Add. And the reason that we're using the same naming convention is so that all our fields will be grouped together with option as the prefix. And that's an email address. So we'll look here for email. Add a new field. And let's create a promotional message. And we'll leave that as a plain text field. So that is just a few fields that we could do and then manage centrally. So let's start with those. Now that we've created our field group and we've linked it to the site options page, we'll head over to site options, and now you'll see that we have those fields available. So under contact number, let's do, we'll just put in any digits. Then we have the email address, so I'll just put in an email address, and then under promotional message, let's just put in a message. So there we have a basic email promotional message, and we'll update. Now what we'd like to do is insert and replace the fields on the website so that it accepts this information. So what we're going to do then, we're just going to update this with a plus number. And then we'll head over to Oxygen and templates. And then we're going to set up and integrate those options into the website. So to do that, we'll head over to the main template, and now what we're going to do is replace the telephone number and the email address with this information. So here we are in the main template, and we can now select the telephone number in the template and replace that with the data from advanced custom fields. So to do that, we will click on Insert Data, go to Advanced Custom Fields, and here you'll see all the custom fields available to us, and you'll remember that we use the word option in front, and now you'll see why, because I can see option contact number, option email address, and option promotional message. So I'm going to select option contact number and insert. And I'm going to do the same for the email address. Insert data and advanced custom fields, and then option email address, insert. And then I'm going to save. I'll head over to the front end and I'm going to refresh. And now you'll see that there is nothing displayed. And that's because for some reason, Oxygen Builder doesn't pull through the information from the options page. So to do that, we're going to get those values and insert a code block to display them. So to get the values, we head back to Advanced Custom Fields, we go back to our field group, and we look for Site Options. And to get the information, to get the code, what we do is we head over here to our Chrome extension, reload the page, and now we can simply copy the code that we need. So we'll go to the option contact number, we can copy code, we then head back to Oxygen Builder, and now what we're going to do is look in our instruction panel, and we're going to add a code block. And in that code block, we're just going to paste the information that we have now, and you'll see that the number is inserted. So what I can do is head up to that text field and delete that. And there I have the code block, and I can style that directly, or I can wrap that in a div and maybe give it some padding, say 5 pixels all around. And there I have the telephone number, and now I can do the same thing for the email address. So option email address, copy that code, head back, add a new code block, and in that code block, paste in that code, apply the code, and you'll see that the email address is visible. Delete that text link, and now what I can do again is wrap that in a div and apply the same 5 pixel spacing all around. So there we have inserted those items, and we'll save that, and now we'll refresh on the home page or any page, and you'll see now that we have the telephone number and we have the email address, and the email address already includes the mail to link so that I can send an email, but perhaps we also want to add the link for this number so that the client can click on that and make the call. So easy enough to do. Head back to our code block, and in this case we'll just attach that link to the div, and we can head over here to the URL, tel colon the number, save, head back to the front end, refresh, and now if I click on that, you'll see that the website attempts to make a call. So the nice thing now is that I can take the same information now and include that in the footer. So what we'll do is we can make this a reusable block, and then we can use it anywhere on the website and know that the right information is carried through. Or alternatively, I could copy the code block and insert it in the footer. So in this case, what I'll do is I'll just duplicate that, bring it down to the footer. I know that the footer also has some contact information, and that would be probably this div here. And what I'm going to do then is just copy that code block down to the bottom, and I'm going to do the same thing with that code block. So now if I go and look in my footer, I will have the two code blocks, and now what I'll do is I will delete the default that was inserted with the theme, and I can do the same thing now. I can go to the first code block, grab that with the div, and I can attach the link then. I know that's the phone number, so I can attach the link for the telephone. Add the link, and you can see that the link is already applied to the email address. And if I want to, I can also then wrap that in a div and then move the code block for the telephone number into that as well, and make that div stack the child elements horizontally. And with that link wrapper, we can give that some padding, also 5 pixels. And I can do the same thing then, wrap this one in a code block, in a div. We'll also give this div some size and padding, and we'll also give that 5 pixels. So that's neatly spaced. And now if we go and have a look on the front end, you'll see that we have the information in the header, and we also have the information here in the footer. Now we might want to do the same thing on a contact us page so that that information is also correct. So we'll head back to the back end of the website, and we'll go and have a look for our contact page. So head over to pages, and here is a contact page. So we'll view that on the front end. So we'd like to replace this information here with the telephone and the email address with the information that we have entered on the options page. So to do that, let's exit here from Oxygen. Let's reload this page. And now you'll see that the Oxygen icon returns as I've exited Oxygen from the back end. And now I can go to Edit with Oxygen. And while that loads, I'm going to head over here to my custom field group so I can get those fields again. So here on custom field groups, you'll see that the option to copy the code is not available. Head over here to my extension and then reload the page. And now if I go to site options, I can copy the code. So with that in place, let's go to the contact number. So here my page is loaded. I can head over to this content, go to the number. Let's open our structure page so we can see how this is structured. We're going to add the code block. And once again in the code block, I'm just simply going to paste in the code for the number, apply the code. Let's collapse the editor. So there we have the number. I can then also remove that number. And what I'm going to do is set the div width here to 100%. And then see if we can get the icon and the code to line up next to each other. So there we go. And maybe what we'll do is on the code block, size and spacing, let's make that 20. Give it some space, or maybe 15 would be better. Right, now what we'll do is we'll add a link to that code block. So instead of wrapping it in a div, I have to wrap it in a div or a span. Let's wrap it in a div and then turn that div into a link, and uh, and the number there was 78, and now we add that link. So now we have the link, and then the next thing we're going to do is update our email address. So also here what we'll do is we'll just set it so that the items fall next to each other, and we'll make the width of that div 100%. And that should allow for the icon and the text link, but let's go and get our email address. So option email address, copy that code, head over to the div, add a new code block, simply paste the information into the code block, apply the code. Now we can see that our email address is there, and we can now close that, and let's apply the width of 100%. Right, now that's working. I can go over to my code block, make this padding to the left 15 so that it aligns with the number. So there we have now also linked the numbers, the details on our contact us page to the information on the options page. So that would mean then that if I was to go to my options page and I went up to my number and I was to make that, change that to that number, it now means that on the website, we're going to navigate here to the front end. You'll see that the number has changed in the header, it's changed in the footer, and if I go to the contact page, it's also changed on the contact page. So that's how easy it would be now to update the contact information on the website. We also included a promotional message. So to implement that, we can do that in a number of ways. So we'll head over to templates. We'll head over to main. We could add that in the main template in the header, for example. What we'll do in the meantime here then is head over to our custom fields, and we'll just go and get the code then to display. Let's go to our field groups, head over to the site options. I can now copy the code for the promotional message. So here I am in Oxygen, go to my structure. I'm going to add this in my header, in the first header row. So we'll just say add. We know that we need to add a custom code block, and we'll enter the code. We'll collapse the editor, and now we'll just move this into the middle, into the center row. And there we have our promotional item. And what we can do now is just give it some formatting. Let's go to advanced. Let's make that font size a little bit bigger. And maybe just change the color. And change the font weight 700. And in size and padding, let's just give that an extra 5 pixels all around. And also in typography, let's just make that line height a bit smaller. Let's make it 1.2 just so that it lines up a bit better. So there we have our promotional message. Let's make it a little bit brighter than that. Right, so that would mean that now when we refresh our page, you'll see that we have the promotional message at the top. What we could do though is we don't want that to display if we don't have any information. The good news is that the condition is included in the code. So if we head back to our code block, you'll actually see that it says if the field has a value, and if we now go back to the custom fields and we remove that information, so we head over to Site Options, and I'm going to take out the text, update, head back to the site, then you'll see that nothing displays, even though there was something before. And if we inspect the content, so you will see that there's the code block, but of course nothing to display inside that code block. So it does have a conditional setting already. Now we're going to implement the code block for the promotional message on the home page with a lot more formatting, just to show how to set it up with the conditional element. To do that, we're going to head back to the options page and we'll just activate that message again and head over to the front end, refresh, and now you'll see that the message does appear again. But what we'll do is we're going to make something a lot bolder here in the content and also include the formatting within the condition. So edit with Oxygen. And we're going to have a look to see why we need to do it the way that we're going to, because Oxygen doesn't recognize the custom field values in an options field. So here we are on the page, and to illustrate what I mean is the normal way of adding a custom field value would normally be to maybe add a text field. Inside the text field, head over to Insert Data, and on Insert Data, we would select Advanced Custom Fields and then select the field value. So we would then go over to Promotional Message, Insert, and that would then insert the message. But as you can see, Oxygen doesn't recognize the value from Advanced Custom Field. So you'll see it doesn't display at all, even though we've selected it in our data here to appear. So in order to get around that, it's quite easy. What we do then is we open up our structure, we'll delete that text, and what we'll do is we'll add a code block, and in the code block we'll simply paste in the custom field value that we want. So head back over here to custom fields, go to our field groups, site options, and then get the promotional message code, head back to Oxygen, simply paste in the code and apply, and you'll see that our code appears. Now if I was to put that wrap this in a div, what would happen is if there was no value, the div and the formatting would still appear, but there'd be no content in that div because Oxygen doesn't recognize the field, and so the conditions don't apply either. So what we need to do is apply the formatting within the condition that's already included in the code that we copied from Advanced Custom Field. So in order to do that, there's the message. What we'll do in this case is we'll just insert a div, and we'll give it a class, and in this case we'll call it promo message, and then we'll close it off with the closing div. Right, so there we've included the div now in the content, but we would like to format that information. So one way of doing that then, apply the code, collapse the editor, and now what we're going to do is we will now add a div. Add a div, and we're going to give it a class, and we're going to make that class promo message. So now what will happen is whatever I apply to this div will now be applied to that content. So I can go ahead now and maybe make the background red. I can make the text white. And maybe what I want to do is under size and spacing is maybe give that 20 pixels all around. Maybe we want to give it a border radius of say 5 all around. And we might even want to give that a box shadow. And let's give that a box shadow. And of course, the text is a little bit small, so let's head back to our typography. And let's change the font size maybe to 40. And let's give it a slightly heavy weight. So now it's very easy to style that element simply using the menu provided by Oxygen. And what we can do now to hide this div is add a condition to that div. And let's say is only available if you are user role is administrator. And if we want to, we can now say always hide, or we can allow it to be visible based on the condition. So we'll save that and we'll head over to the front end of the website. So to do that, I'm just going to do that here in a new tab. And you'll see, because we're the administrator, we see that little white block. So let's add another condition here. If we don't want to see that, we can just say date is before and any date before today's date, save. And now of course that won't be visible. So now we can see what it looks like. So what happens when there's no value? What will the user see? So we head back to site options. We're now going to remove the special. We'll go back to the front end. And now when I refresh the page, there's nothing to see. Head back, update the value, and there's something to see. So that wraps up the video on creating some theme options, how to style it, and then also how to style that custom PHP code that you've installed with the formatting options available in Oxygen. I hope you enjoyed that video. Thank you for watching.